Welcome to the FearnutZ Hour, Episode 2. I am Mr. Beatnuts. Along with me is Fearsome. And what do we have on topic for today?
Today we are going to tackle politics and some political issues that we have discussions around the house about. And some people will be a little upset about that because they did the polls for the comic book movies, and we will get to that probably next week. But we've been discussing these topics a lot this week, so that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, there was a very inspiring Facebook thread that kind of prompted this discussion. So we'll just leave it at that and then continue with this week's episode. So what is our first topic?
What we're going to go over today, we're going to go over, let's start with gay marriage. I think that was the biggest rant-incurring topic that came up this week, so let's go with that one.
Gay marriage. Alright, so this is a pretty highly debated topic, especially going into the political season with, of course, the presidential elections coming up. What are your feelings?
I have always been pretty, pro-gay marriage, but I think the sanctity of marriage is, pretty much way past saving. So, the whole argument, marriage is a sacred bond between man or a woman, no. The fact that 90% of those people are on their 6th or 7th wife or husband just makes their argument null and void as far as I'm concerned.
And see, where I disagree with you on that, I believe marriage is a sacred bond between man and woman. And I feel like what our laws fail to do is keep that in mind. I think divorce should be illegal. I think adultery should be an offense punishable by law. And this would actually protect the sanctity of marriage. You can't have divorce be legal and then complain that we're trying to make marriage lesser by allowing the same-sex marriage to occur. You have to either have one or the other. If it was up to me, I would say we go to the extreme. If you guys want sanctity of marriage, let's actually do a law that does work that way by, once again, making divorce illegal. Because as long as there's divorce, marriage is not there's no sanctity in marriage. When you get married, it is till death do you part, not until you guys get bored of each other and decide to split up. And then adultery, it is in the 10 Commandments for the Bible thumpers that it is against the 10 Commandments to commit adultery. So that should be a law under the same ideology that same-sex marriages should not occur.
I agree to a certain extent, but even that opens up doors to a lot of things. There are countries now where divorce is legal. Unfortunately, in those countries, stoning your wife to death usually isn't. So rather than a divorce, when you're ready to trade in for a new model, you just kill your wife. And, granted, American women are more empowered than a lot of other countries, so it may be when you're ready to trade in, you just kill your husband. But it seems like that could open the door to a lot more spousal killings, too. So I could see doing that. I could see that as a viable option. I think to those people that they say, marriage is sacred and that's why they want to protect against same-sex marriage, that we should ask them, would they be willing to do that? And especially these bigger proponents, like Rush Limbaugh, I don't see how he can sound off on same-sex marriage, because we know he has no qualms with having multiple partners, having sex out of wedlock, having new marriages. He's made it clear publicly that he has no problem with that at all. But that's not the only argument against same-sex marriage. A lot of people argue that gays can't make as good parents as straight people. And we all know that's not true. Anybody that knows a variety of straight parents knows that they come in all shapes and sizes. There's horrible ones, no matter whether they're straight or gay or not. And I have a little side rant on that you're aware of, and probably most of the people that know me personally have heard this before. But in my opinion, you have to be licensed to drive because it can affect other people's lives. You can endanger someone else's lives. You have to be licensed to carry a firearm because you can endanger other people's lives. But you don't have to be licensed to have a child. I think that is a very flawed system. That child depends on you. Obviously, you could easily endanger that child's life. And a lot of people are like, oh, you could never do that. It would never work. Partly it would cause problems because people would be like, oh, I'm just going to, not apply for a license, and then what are they going to do, murder my child afterwards? No. But if you have a child and you're not licensed, you get no support for said child. You cannot apply for welfare. You cannot apply for child support. You had it without going through the proper channels, then we make it a legal citizen, and that is all you get.
I actually agree with that. We are now pushing more for marriage counseling for people going into marriage to do the counseling. You should have to pass a course in parenting in order to become a parent within the system. The fact that there are so many people, especially young kids, teenagers, getting pregnant is basically from stupidity of not really understanding what all is getting ready to happen with their lives. The fact that there are 14, 15-year-old kids having kids is just ridiculous, because how can someone that young provide for a kid when they are a kid being provided for by their parents? It is that kind of takes us away from where we were going with the gay marriage thing. It's kind of a side rant, but jumping back to that topic, the way I see it is either go all the way or none of the way. America was founded on freedom of religion, and gay marriage, that is more of a religious topic than a political topic, if you ask me. If we want to have the religious laws of Christianity inflect the laws of our country, then we need to go all the way that way, or we need to make sure church and state are separate and allow same-sex marriage. Your church does not have to recognize that marriage, but the state, the country should recognize that marriage and give those couples the same rights as regular male and female marriages.
And the last thing with gay marriage, the last opposition to it, or the last major opposition I've heard of, is the gay marriage, homosexuality, period, is an affliction. It's a disease that can be, I guess, contracted and supposedly cured. That's why I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the straight camps to butch up the guys and femme down the girls and get them to marry the opposite sex. The only problem is there's been no major medical organization has been willing to back this theory at all. Like, according to them, it's not a disease, it's not treatable. You can't give somebody a pill to take twice daily and all of a sudden they're like, screw dick, I want pussy. No, that's just not how it works. The only organizations that are willing to come out and say that are usually local churches that also believe handling serpents allows the Lord to talk through them. And handling trouser snakes doesn't seem any crazier to me than handling copperheads. I mean, it seems like there's a clear winner there, and I'd rather the guy go plow some other dude than come over with a bag of snakes and offer to tell me about the Lord.
All right.
You didn't have anything about the disease? You think I covered the basics?
Okay. The one thing I will add about it being a disease, or even the people who say it's a choice, is guys are way easier to deal with than women. every man in the world would be gay if he could just turn a switch and find guys attractive. It is so much easier to get along with men than it is women. And that tells me right there that it is not just something that you just decide to do one day. You're just like, wake up one day and be like, hey, there's a penis. I might like that in my ass.
I agree completely. And a lot of guys watching this, especially if their girlfriend's right beside them, are going to go, no, I would never. I love pussy. No, you're the first one. You are the first one. You would suck dick right now. If I threw $500 on the table, you would suck my dick. As long as nobody was around. And if I bumped it up to 1,000, you'd probably let me video it, you sick fuck. But also, girls, I know some of you are thinking, not my man. Yes, your man. Think about this. You're complicated, okay? And that's a good thing. And to a lot of guys, to a lot of hot heterosexual guys, we like the complications. But also, you can't tell me that all these girls out here have never once looked at their boyfriend or husband or whatever and seen the smoke rolling out his fucking ears because he is just trying to catch up on what he's done wrong or what he can do to get out of trouble or make you happy or whatever, and he never has that with another dude. You have never seen two dudes in a discussion and one of the dudes with a look on his face that says, oh shit, I did something to make him mad, what could it possibly be? We don't do that. Guys are so simple. I mean, even if two dudes get in a fight, it's usually done after that. They cleared the air, they move on. So girls, yes he would, because your man is stupid, so he would obviously go with the easier choice.
I will quote Josh Kramer real quick to finish this discussion off. What is better than going out with the guys, enjoying some beer, watching the UFC, just broing it out, and then come home and 69 each other? And that is the end of a good night.
Yeah, I mean, that does top it off. Alright, now, next. Okay, next, let's go with the topic that even hardcore conservatives, of which I am not, obviously, can jump on board. And that's updating our infrastructure. I think that's something that throughout history we've done after, any major conflict, especially. I mean, we try and keep up all the time, but especially after major conflicts or setbacks with our country, we always like to pull together and make that fucking push forward. And I think to an extent we tried to do that this time around, but we backed the wrong horse. I don't think automobiles are what we need to focus on. I don't think the car companies were what we needed to help out or what we need to push forward. I mean, obviously in this day and age, it's electronics. It's data and the exchange of data. We need to update our infrastructure. And not even just our data infrastructure, but also our water infrastructure. Pretty much everything. I mean, the technology side of things has made it where there are vast improvements that could be made to everything right now. And all these technologies are being developed that we're not using. Everywhere from self-healing roads, which are finally being implemented in some places, where they're made with dry concrete in them, and so when they crack and the moisture gets in, it basically mixes and forms its own scab and heals itself with nobody ever having to tend to it. They have systems for fixing the drainage pipes, because I was watching a report in New York. They lose millions of gallons a day from one of the main water veins that goes into New York City. They've developed some things that, if you've seen The Matrix, the little things that fly through or whatever, it's kind of like that, only it rolls through and it has these plastic tarps, basically trash bags or whatever, only obviously higher quality, that it leaves behind them, and it basically just drives through the pipe and puts that up so it's got a new coat. So if there's cracks in the pipe, now it's got that plastic to seal it and no more water leaking out. And these are just ingenious designs that they've come up with. And the biggest infrastructure to me is data. I mean, the fact that we're the United States, and whether you're looking at average volume or average speeds or peak speeds, we're not in the top 10 in either. We are not in the top 10 on either of those. And we're talking internet, we're talking wireless signals, all that. We're just way behind the times. And again, there's ingenious solutions out there, but we're not getting behind them. I mean, everything from just upgrading the systems we currently have to putting blimps in the stratosphere that actually, instead of like a cell tower, it would basically be cell towers in the sky on these little blimps that can cover, instead of like a cell tower now can cover the size of a small town to a small city. These could cover like counties and even states. Like a blimp with the proper towers could cover an entire state. And it would be so easy to maintain or anything. Now, granted, there would have to be like double measures in place to prevent like blackouts or anything should anything happen with one, but it's not like if we put those up, we're going to just pull up all the lines we currently have down. So, I mean, those right there could be the safety checks.
Yeah, I feel like the infrastructure lack in America is actually really causing us to fade away as one of the world's superpowers. I feel like China has already passed us. As far as technology and stuff like that goes, Korea is miles ahead of us. Japan, obviously, is always on the cutting edge of technology. And we need to learn from those, because not only are they surpassing us with the infrastructure, they're surpassing us with the school systems and so many other areas, because all of this is connected. If you look at the United States test scores compared to many of the other so-called superpowers in the world, we are falling further and further behind with each passing year. And it's because I feel there's a lack of focus right now. Like Alan said, the automobile industry, I understand that has a lot of jobs, but at the same time, where is that really in taking America forward? There are just so many options out there for, automobiles. I mean, Japan, Italy, everywhere over in Europe, there's basically these companies with cars, but none of that's really going to help us move forward as a nation. And that is where the focus needs to, really be repositioned on, not what is going to be the quick Band-Aid, but what's going to be the long-term fix.
And the worst part about the automobile thing is you're pushing a resource that uses the other resources we were talking about. Like, it uses the roads that are in disrepair in a lot of places right now. It uses the oil that we're worried about the supply of. And now with like OnStar, Sync, all those technologies, it uses the internet bandwidth, yes, which we're worried about running out of. And now there's data caps everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, just talk to an AT&T cell user if they think the data caps are starting to become an issue.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as an AT&T user, they haven't become an issue, but I'm home pretty often, and when I'm home, I never use my cell phone signal. I use my Wi-Fi signal at home all the time. The trouble is, though, some of the areas that rely on cell phone signals in rural areas, like where we're from, their internet fucking sucks. Their cell phone signal can be as fast or faster than their home internet. And some places they don't even have broadband available, so they have to rely on that cellular connection. Alright, that's a lot of infrastructure ranting, yes, and people probably aren't going to relate to that except for the geeky people that watch the show, and they understand that this is a very pressing issue. Anyway, okay, let's move to drugs. We, I think, are both in agreement that we could see and get behind the legalization of narcotics.
Yes.
At least a good majority of the narcotics. But that would raise a lot of issues. Number one of which would be endangering other lives. But that's got a couple gray areas to it. One, we already have like pretty lax penalties for drinking and driving, and that endangers other lives. So we would have to, I think, kind of harshen the penalties across the board. Anything that requires responsibility, I think there should be stiffer penalties. So I don't care if we legalize pot and crack and meth or whatever. If you are driving and are under the influence of any of those, then you go to jail. I think if we start off with a fine, it should be a very large fine for the first offense, and your second offense definitely like jail time. I would say like probation, license suspension for the first offense, and jail time for the second. Because I know a lot of people that have gotten a lot of DUIs and never incurred that much of a penalty for it. And they harken back to the parenting thing we were on earlier. I think that's another thing that you should be really responsible with, and I think that part of the licensing test should be drug testing. And if you test as a drug user, then that should make you not eligible for a license until you clean up. And, if you choose to still go ahead and have a child and you're a drug user, then I don't think anybody else should be held responsible paying for your child's health issues because you were popping Xannies when you were pregnant.
Yeah, I think, just real quick, touching on the pregnancy thing once again, there should be a mandatory drug test with each checkup. And if you fail even one, the state should have custody of your child as soon as it is born. As far as the legalization of drugs, one, it is an impossible war to win. Drug users are going to find a way to use drugs. People think anyone who's pro-cannabis legalization is just a pie. I've never smoked marijuana in my life. I will never smoke marijuana in my life. And I am pro the legalization because I see it as a huge tax revenue that could be made available to help out with things like we talked about with infrastructure, that extra money rolling in, going to the government. Two, it's going to be safer. Having government sanctions over the creation of these drugs instead of just some guy in his basement working out a meth lab that has no idea what the hell he's doing. And with the stiffer laws, I totally agree with that as well. I mean, I personally feel that drunk driving is attempted murder. You are putting every single person on the street with you, every single person walking along the street in danger by making a selfish decision. That would be the same as you running around just shooting a gun indiscriminately. Maybe you miss everyone, but
and I say if I have to play a video game to do what I want to do, shooting my gun around randomly, then you should have to play a video game to do drunk driving. You get crazy drunk taxi while I play fucking Battlefield or whatever, alright? I shouldn't have to play a video game for what I want to do in reality when you get to do whatever you want for free. Bullshit.
I will say they actually had drunk driving in Grand Theft Auto 4 and it got bashed on really hard.
Yeah, because people are like, I don't want to do that in a video game. I do that on a Saturday night. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Alright. Alright, let's try and keep this moving because we're probably already pushing the 30-minute mark. Did you have anything else to add on drugs?
Nothing more really. Just, it is a huge tax revenue that is being wasted. And, people are going to be making money off drugs. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, hundreds of $billions a year. And who should get that? The meth dealer down the street or the government who can actually put it towards government things like infrastructure, updating. Obviously if we legalized it, I would like to see more plans for helping people rehab stations, things of that nature. But yeah, it just has to be something that is done. Obviously, there would be a lot of issues with it, but there's already a lot of issues with it. I think legalizing could actually help lower the drug use, just because it's going to take the stigma away.
Well, and there's one more thing on that. Not only would it cut costs and of policing it, but and we'd also get the tax revenue. And right now, it's a heavily imported commodity.
Yeah.
You're patriotic, right? I mean, I don't want to smoke some Peruvian crack. I want American crack, grown in the fields of Indiana, okay? I want some good American made. And that's the thing. You get a lot of people, a lot of drug addicts. You know you want to see made in the USA on your fucking bottles and your fucking packages, okay? So let's get behind it, or you're un-American. All right, moving on. Prostitution.
Another huge tax source that is impossible to police.
Yes, but when we start talking about this, I looked into some logistics of it because I had to go through some training courses for a job relating to spotting terrorist activity, and one of those things that they trained me on was human trafficking. So I knew that was a problem with prostitution, and I looked more into the logistics of it, and that is probably the biggest problem with prostitution is human trafficking, with a close second as the pimp and what they get out of it. So both of those would need to be heavily policed. But we already have organizations like that. We have an organization to police the sale of and distribution of tobacco and alcohol and firearms. We got that, not only the ATF as the policing organization, but most states have individual organizations before they give out like a license to a bar or a license a gas station to sell cigarettes. So a lot of these organizations are already in place, and some of our organizations that are quickly going downhill, like the post office, we're losing federal jobs, and complaint is, these people are going to be out of work. Let's shuffle them right over. Let's put them in charge of making sure that they verify that these are workers that are licensed to work in the American and the United States, and make sure that they are getting paid their fair wage. If we're going to legalize prostitution, slap a minimum wage on it. Are they considered, a regular job? Are they considered a tips-driven job? We need to decide these things, and we need to set up rules and regulations for it. And I don't see why, I don't know, I'd have to read more in the laws of Nevada, but Nevada has the legalized brothels, and supposedly human trafficking and the pimp thing is already an issue there. I don't know why. If it's legalized, I don't know why somebody's not checking into it. How hard is it to verify that this girl, is only 15, or that this girl who cannot speak a lick of English is obviously not from the United States? It doesn't seem that hard to me.
Well, real quick on Nevada's laws, I know that it is legal in certain counties. Like certain counties, right. It is illegal.
Right.
That's where a lot of the trafficking takes place. Like Las Vegas, it is illegal, but you have a lot of escort services and stuff like that provide the same services, just under the table and under the guise of something legitimate. Bottom line is, this is something that, regardless of where you live, is happening in your town. There is somebody who is selling sexual favors for money. And just like with the drug use, if someone it's an impossible thing to actually police. It can happen at such a macro level, it is impossible to stop every case. So if we legalize it, we tax it, we are at least getting some benefit of that. We can cut the cost of policing it, and actually make money off of it, which is, I mean, we're in such a huge deficit as a country, yet we have all this money that people are burning on things that could be coming into America instead of going out of America. For instance, like the drugs, a lot of that money is going to other countries instead of coming to America.
Right, and I know, like, in the counties where it is legalized in Nevada, they have laws where all the girls or all the employees are subject to like spot health checks or like predetermined time set health checks, which is good for disease control. So right now, all the under the table or non affiliated fucking hookers or whatever. Just trying to think of the nice word, prostitutes. There we go.
Yeah.
I don't know why hookers is stuck in my mind. I guess it's from watching Shatner with the T.J. Hooker reference. Anyway, all them, there's no health plan. I mean, I'm sure these guys, like, bringing in these girls from Eastern Europe are not being like, this Albanian prostitute gets monthly checkups to verify that she is healthy and tip-top in the snatch region. I don't see that being a sales pitch. I mean, it could be. I don't know, but I just don't see it happening.
But let's look real quickly at other countries. Denmark has legalized many drugs and has legalized prostitution. I know pretty much everyone is familiar with the stories of Amsterdam. Even if you haven't been, you're familiar with it. But
that's actually in the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
But anyway. Sorry. Go.
Anyway. It is legalized in Amsterdam, but the crime rate, like, people worry that the crime rate will skyrocket, and it just, there's no research to back this up. There's no research to correlate the legalization of prostitution, drugs, or even gambling in Indiana. There's no correlation of those things becoming legalized and the crime rate skyrocketing as some people feared.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the stuff, it's not going anywhere. So I don't see why we're battling it. I mean, it's called the world's oldest profession for a reason. It's outdates our country by thousands of years. So I think it's a little arrogant of us to think that we can just be like, nope, prostitution is morally egregious, so we are just going to cut it out. It's not going to happen here. Yeah, it is. No matter what you do, it's going to happen. I mean, especially, like, I don't see why the whole pro-breeder movement that's anti-gay marriage can't get behind it. I mean, according to your logic, it's natural to want penis and vagina together. So it's kind of fighting nature there, fighting God's will. And I'm sure, God wants you to bang prostitutes in order to procreate.
Yeah, well, that's...
Alright, I may harbor some resentment to some religious zealots that got a little post-happy on some of my private pages lately. What can you do?
Alright, well then, that was a political conversation. Next week we should be back with the comic book movies, as we are still collecting. Hit up the FearnutZ Facebook page. We have some polls set up. We'll also add some polls from today's show that we can talk about next week. And then also follow us on Twitter, and make sure you subscribe and thumb us up on YouTube.
And we have one topic that was brought up that we are going to be discussing in the near future. It's a topic of controversy within our group, and that is farts and their place in legitimate humor. So that conversation will be coming up sometime in the near future in a future episode.
Yes. From the intellectual to the fucking third grade humor.